I have been incredibly busy with garden projects and boat projects, and I haven't been up here in quite a while. Today, I need a rest. I've made a couple of these little panels. Basically, it's just a sun catcher. Lean them up against the windowsill, very pretty. I did this one, these yellow, they look more like calendula than sunflowers. I did poppies. And I have more of the red blanks, more of the yellow gold blanks. I have a couple of blue blanks. So I think today I'm just gonna make a whole bunch of these because it'll be very relaxing. And I'm in that kind of mood today where I just need a break. I'm not sure of the size. These are 4 by 9 3/4. I like the 9 3/4 because it gives a really nice long stem and grassy look. I think the 4 might be a little narrow. The poppies, I think I did on a 6. It was a little too wide. So maybe I'll do 5 by 10s. I have 4 5 by 10 rectangles and then 1 5 by 8, 8.5, because this was just in my scrap bin. So I may or may not do 5 of them. I've got them on their side because that will make stems and long grass much easier to apply. And I have to make some decisions on whether I'm putting them flat or I'm layering. The blue I can't layer because I only have those 2. But the others, I have multiple pieces, so I could layer them. I have some really big ones. I believe with these, I'm going to cut the petals because a plain round looks great, but I've done a handful of those and would like something a little bit different, and now I'm not seeing where I put the other one. Doesn't matter. So first step is going to be lay in the background, and then I will go to the Taurus saw and start cutting the discs. I'm going to use green glass line paint to do these long pieces of grass in the background. And then I have stringers from Tabitha's Glass Emporium. I'll put those in to make the leaves. Start working on the frit. And then finally, I'll be working on the flowers. Do I need 4 of these? No. But like I said, I'm tired and this would be very relaxing. These are old. They came with the kiln. And they had some paint spattered on them. I tried to wash it off, destroyed the label. But this is glass line and it's dark green. I find that sometimes you get skips. There's a blob. I can either wipe that right off, scrape it off, or I could wipe the whole thing. Let's say I don't like this at all. Just spritz some rubbing alcohol onto a paper towel, clean the whole piece of glass and start over. I don't think the skips, at first I didn't like the way they looked, but I think it's going to be fine. Because once you've added everything else, you're not really going to notice. But I'd like them to look somewhat consistent, but not matchy-matchy. While it looks very dominant now, when you're finished, because it's that first layer and it's behind a whole bunch of other glass, it's really not that noticeable. I mean, it's definitely there, but it doesn't become a prominent feature. Next step is to put the powders And you can put them right over top of the green stripe. It doesn't really make, or the green paint doesn't really make much of a difference. I'm going to be using transparents for the most part. I've got Kelly green, spring green, and pine green I'm going to put on the bottom. And then light sky blue is my favorite for the sky. And I should get a piece of paper to put underneath there so I'm not wasting my powder. So let me go do that. We go a little darker on the edge, a little bit lighter in the middle. The powder is transparent, the paint is opaque, so it's not going to be a problem that it's over top of the paint. Now I have to go back and do all the rest. So this one I hit, so I need to go back and fix this one. I'm gonna tap, 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 and then sprinkle more on top to get rid of my fingerprints. I started with a Kelly green as my green. I'm gonna put a little bit of pine green on top of that, and then a little bit of spring green powder on top of that. Next step will be to work on the flowers. I will put frits over top of the powders, but you want that powder layer on first because then everything stays flat and smooth. If you put the frit on next, then these flowers tend to want to wiggle and not stay where you put them. So I need to get these ready for the ring saw, and I have to decide what type of flower they're going to be. Poppies, I'm going to do 2 layer. And I want them to be slightly wavier. It's really red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim just so they look like they have a slightly more organic poppy type shape, because poppies are more ruffled on the outside. They're not completely round. Then when I stack those, they'll have a little more texture. I would like this one. I have a thicker one. I like the difference in size. So there's a little bit of an overlap. These, I think I'm going to do more of a sunflower look. So I'm going to notch the edges. And I'm just doing quick and sloppy right now. And then these will be more of a daisy-like petal. So poppy, sunflower, cornflower. I have 2 more, which I'd probably make just a generic. With these, you just notch. And they tend to round out. Now these are ready for the tourist saw. So let me go check and make sure it's got enough water in it. When you're setting up to cut, you take this tray out and there are some drive wheels in there and you want the water to be halfway up the blue drive wheel. So some of them I broke, and usually that happens when I get impatient and I try to go too fast. You have to go really slowly, but it won't matter because I'm stacking and gluing and I have a whole bunch of things I'm going to do to these. I'm putting centers piled up in the middle, so these will be fine. With this, I do use a mask and goggles. First time I used it, I didn't. And I left the session feeling like I'd been to the beach on a windy day. Like I had grit between my teeth. And I thought, oh dear, if I've got grit between my teeth, that means I'm breathing it in. So now I always use a P100 mask and my safety glasses to make sure I don't get it in my eyes and I don't get it in my lungs. I now need to clean and dry them and decide whether they're going to be stacked or single layer. The best pen I've found to make the marking is a Milwaukee Inksol. It works much better than a Sharpie. You don't have to do all the extra steps to keep it from coming off while you're cutting. And it comes off with rubbing alcohol. I used to spend a lot of time making sure the edges of my petals were perfect. This one I will go back and fix. But this I won't, because it is going to soften in the kiln. Some things you can get away with, some things you can't. You just learn over time as you play. The flowers are not perfect, so it's fine. But this one, where there's a definite notch, I will get rid of that. My composition is going to be off on the cornflowers, because you're better off with odd numbers. Makes for a nicer composition. I don't have 3 of these, and I'm not making any more blanks right now. So it is what it is. And I may not have enough flowers to do 5 panels. It looks like I have enough to do 4. So I may just put one aside for a while. We'll see. So I like the way these look now. I'm thinking the poppies need to be stacked. The sunflowers I'm going to keep flat. This sort of calendula looking thing I'm going to keep flat. They look really nice when you stack them, but I don't have enough of the bright yellow to stack them, so I think I'm just going to leave them. And the cornflower, same thing. So the basic arrangement is done, and now I have to go through my bin of Vitagraph stringers and find leaves and grassy looking accents. My plan is to start making my own Vitagraph stringers, and I picked up the bottom, the interchangeable bottom for my kiln that would allow that to happen, but I haven't really gotten up my nerve yet to start pulling molten glass from the bottom of my kiln, but I will soon, I hope. I should probably go back and make more of either the sunflowery looking ones or the calendula looking to make them 2-layer, because I want it to be a little more balanced, but I don't have anything other than red at this point. The only discs I have left are red. And like I said, I don't really feel like making more discs right now. So these may not be displayed near each other. This may be displayed in a separate area, and those three could go together. This is my bin of stringers, and now I have to go through and find pieces that look like leaves. I have some that are giant. That's not going to work. The ones on this were absolutely perfect. I love those. I just don't think I have enough of them. So I'm going to dig through and see if I can find appropriate pieces to make leaves. So these Vitagraph are absolutely perfect for buds and leaves. And these are from Tabitha's Glass Emporium. Unfortunately, getting them takes a really long time. Not on her end. She ships them immediately. But my last order took a little more than a month to get to Connecticut. It came over from Croatia to New York, then went to Springfield, Mass., then back to New York, then to Springfield, Missouri, then back to New York, then back to Springfield, Mass. So by the time they got it to me, it was just a really, really long lead time. So I need to start making my own. I'm sure they're not going to be as beautiful as hers, but at least I can have them on demand. Now that I have leaves, I have to go back and put stems. Anywhere that you mess up the powder, you can just tap it down. And then the last few steps, you're going to dust over it again anyway, so that you can fix that later on. So now I'm going to go back and touch up any place where the blue was damaged. And if I can go right over top of everything else, because I'm going to use a little paintbrush to get the powder away from areas where I don't want it. So I'm just going to make sure I have a nice blue coating. I'm going to do the same for the green. And then any area where I got it over top of the flowers, I will just brush it off with a paintbrush. Next, I'm going to put the centers. I'm going to use Frit. Over this one, it would be nice if I had a big glass dot. I don't. So I'm just going to use Frit. When I did the discs, I put Frit down on most of them. Some of them I flipped over, so it's not as noticeable. Some it's very noticeable. And I'm going to use a combination of black, woodland brown, probably sunflower yellow, depending on which flower. Okay, last step is to add in the coarse Frit. I'm going to go with light sky blue in the sky, various greens and yellows, in the grass to make it look kind of meadowy. And this will be very light because it's transparent. So you'll be able to see through it pretty well. But it'll just add a little bit of texture. Just adds a little bit of texture to the sky and to the meadow. So I went back and I put a deep royal blue to give it a little bit more of a pop. I'm not sure I actually like it, but at this point, there's nothing I can do about it. So these are ready for the kiln after I do a little brushing where I've got blue on top of the leaves. I want that off. If I've got something on top of the petals, I want that cleaned off. Lining them all up side by side while I did this sort of meadowy base allows me to put them together because there's consistency among the pieces. So I could display them together, or I could separate them and give them to 4 different people. We shall see. I am a hobby fuser, so I do not have a kiln that's big enough to put all 4 of these in at one time. So I'm going to leave it with the assembly, and then I'll make a short to show you what they look like when they're done. But of course, I have to play a little bit, make sure they're exactly the way I want them before I pop them in the kiln. This was indeed a very relaxing way to spend this day. Thank you so much for watching. The final step, which I did not mention and should, is I'm going to cover the entire thing with transparent powder, because when you've got so many different components, the transparent powder tends to keep everything from moving around in the kiln and gives everything a nice, smooth, shiny coating. So that'll be the last thing, and then they'll go in the kiln.